What is going on, everybody? We are here. We are live for Charlotte Vibe, your credentialed media source, covering the Carolina Panthers, as I call them now, the team that resides on Mitt and Moorhead. Because hey, we're 1-12. This season has not gone the way that we have liked, and hey, you got to have a little fun with it amidst a very poor season, if you will, right? But nevertheless, I'm Andre Cassidy here, coming at you with another Mental Health Monday video, something that we do every week. Uh, Again, cathartic for me. I know it's cathartic for all of you out there. And let me go ahead and get this right out of the way. Go ahead, hit the like button so people find out about Charlotte Vibe and what we are all about here. Go ahead, leave those comments down in the comments section. We'll be getting to those towards the latter portion of the show here tonight. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and we want to reach that goal by the end of the season. We've been doing giveaways, we've been doing a lot of things here at Charlotte Vibe to try to keep things interesting and spiced up amidst a team in which we are covering right now that is in a 1-12 start to their year. So it is definitely been a challenge, but we're going to do everything we can around here to keep things interesting, to keep things fun and lighthearted. You name it, we're going to try and do it. And for everybody out there as well, we're here for you. This is the sole reason why we go live, is to interact with all of you out there. So hit up that link that is down in the description to go ahead and hop on board here and to let loose. Hey, you have every reason to be frustrated. You have every reason to be mad. Go ahead and hit that link down in the description, and we would love to hear what you have to say. And before we get too far into it, Chris just landed in Greensboro, literally within the past 10 to 15 minutes. He will be joining us here tonight, but it'll probably be towards the latter end of the show. We'll be on for about an hour here tonight. A lot to talk about, right? From the game that took place yesterday to some of the tweets that we saw from Thomas Brown's wife, the offensive coordinator of the Panthers, and what she said. And there has been a lot of noise surrounding this team, whether it be on the field, off the field, you name it. It's been a pretty noisy couple of weeks. And hey, that's what happens when you are not winning football games and you're not getting the job done on Sunday. But let me go ahead and start with this, right? So Chris Tabor had his usual Monday press conference, and it was a pretty light ordeal, right? A lot of the media people today, um, it was done through Zoom, so it was a pretty light sort of news conference. And right off the bat, he indicated that today was pretty much a day off for the team. There wasn't any formal activities that were taking place today. So while there were people in the building at Bank of America Stadium today, there wasn't any formal activity that was taking place. And look, I kind of agree with that sentiment, especially after a tough loss yesterday. You want to be able to try to change things up and try to get the guys to get away from it, if you will, for the day. Obviously, Monday is a pretty light day. Pretty much getting treatments. Excuse me, looking back at the film from the prior day and yesterday's game. So Mondays are a pretty light day to begin with, but pretty much Coach Tabor indicated that we're just trying to clear our heads and try to get away from the game, especially you know with everything that has happened up to this point in the year and with it being a tough season. I mean, I don't blame him for trying to get these guys to just step back and kind of just refreshed from afar, if you will. Another thing that he mentioned in his press conference, which was brought up again, and I feel like this is going to get brought up as we get closer towards the end of the season, is the idea of potentially benching Bryce Young, right? And this is a conversation that is continuing to gain more and more steam. And pretty much his response to those questions are the only way that you improve, the only way that you gain experience is to actually be in the game and to play. That's how you get experience. And I just saw a comment from Shakid. Yes, you are able to call in. There is a link down in the description for you guys to call in, and it should be working. So I don't think we should be having any issues in regards to that. So again, that description link, or excuse me, that link is in the description for all of you to come in and be a part of the conversation. But to get back to what Tabor was saying about Bryce Young and him potentially being benched, it was something that really hasn't crossed his mind and something that he hasn't even considered. And hey, I 100% agree with that. I think when you look at the whole situation with Bryce, when you look at everything that has um, taken place, I think he is the last of our problems. The problems that we have right now with this team are organizational issues. And it takes very few individuals at that quarterback position, and there are very few individuals who can overcome managerial and organizational failures. And obviously, Bryce Young is not that guy. He's a rookie. So, and that pressure is only going to get brought on by the fact that he was the number one overall pick. But this is his first year. And for those who are advocating for him to get benched, why? Leave those comments down below. But I really do want to hear more perspectives and the thought processes behind that, because I know people have brought it up in weeks past, but I still just don't understand why you would want to go down that road. Because if you were to bench Bryce Young, let's just say we go ahead and do that. The people who are advocating for it, they're saying, hey, we need to protect Bryce Young. It's not worth keeping him in there because of the situation. And my response to that is, protecting him from what? We need to keep him safe from the inevitable. It's football. Football is not meant to be easy. Football is not a safe sport. You get hit every single play. So if you're trying to baby him from that aspect, then that kind of says a lot about how much confidence you have in him, for one, staying healthy and being able to sustain these kinds of hits that he has been taking. That's a conversation we'll have later. But I think up to this point, when you look at this situation, it is beneficial that you have him in there all the way through to the end of the season. Obviously, with the team being where they're at right now and how things have just went completely awry, this is going to serve as a blessing in disguise with how poor this season has been for him, how poorly he has played. Because ultimately, when you look at it from the bigger picture, you need to have these roadblocks. You need to have adversity. You need to have moments of pain and struggle, because that's what's going to make him better in the long run. And for those who are saying we need to protect him from that, well, then how else are you going to learn the quarterback position in the NFL? And that's something that I agreed with Frank Reich, with Coach Tabor. We're not benching Bryce Young, ladies and gentlemen. And while that's going to continue to gain steam as we continue to lose more and more games, and really, quite frankly, he has not made a noticeable leap in play. He's actually regressed instead of, progressed. As you look, at his statistics over the past 6 games, it hasn't been pretty. But you need to have those moments. You need to have moments like he's having. Because now you're going to realize, look, The NFL is not easy. This season has humbled him, and it maybe have scarred him or has scarred him. But again, with the right coaching, with the right attitude, and the right foundational pieces surrounding him, we can use that to our advantage. And to simply say, we shouldn't have him in there for the last 4 games of the season to protect him, that's not to protect him. It's trying to protect him from everything else that's around him. And that's not his fault for being in a pretty poorly built situation. Um, that's something that I'm never going to jive with. You guys know my opinion on that. I don't think he should ever be benched because ultimately, again, how is he going to interpret that? That's going to be a confidence wrecker for you right there. And you don't want to ruin his confidence any more than what we already have up to this point in this season. So that's a conversation that I know will continue to get brought up. But again, I'm going to continue to adamantly disagree with those who advocate for it. And I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen and say, hey, why do you feel that way? Um, because if you do bench Bryce, what is your motivation for watching this team? Right? I mean, there's no other reason for me, personally speaking, as to why I would go out of my way to turn on the TV to watch this Panthers team play. I mean, there's just no other way around it. So, again, I want to hear what you have to say. Continue to leave those comments down in the comments section. We will be getting to those towards the end of the broadcast. And another thing that Chris Tabor talked about yesterday was, or excuse me, today in regards to yesterday's game is, with the block punt, the simple mistakes that the team made that are self inflicted and really has been the common theme for this team this season is the continued shooting themselves in the foot. And um, give me 1 second. I think Chris is trying to join, but I am not um, seeing him call in. So give me 1 second, everybody. Uh, stand by just one moment. All right, just stand by 1 second. I'm going to see what is the problem here because he is indicating that he is trying to call in and it is not letting him join the broadcast. So, all right, I think we have it figured out here. So let me go ahead and bring on my guy, the man of the people. Let me go ahead and add him onto the screen here. Chris Jenkins, what's going
Hey
on,
man,
my man?
you finally let me on the show.
Yeah, there was a button that I had to turn on there, but we were able to figure it out, and we got you on, man. I see you found a pretty comfortable spot there at
Yeah,
the airport.
let me find some headphones just in case there's some feedback because I think there was once before. So let me plug these in.
Okay,
Yes, I found a quiet place and some very good internet. So
better than New Orleans.
tremendously better than New Orleans. Tremendously better.
Again, folks, this is all behind the scenes, banter that we have, right? But he was uh, a pretty big fan of the setup at the Superdome yesterday.
Yeah, and hopefully you're not going to hear too many announcements over the loudspeaker. I don't know if you probably can hear that. I may
Yeah,
mute myself if
it's
I'm not talking, but it should be brief. I'm at an airport that's in Greensboro actually at the moment, and it's pretty empty.
yeah. So, which is in comparison to what we have to deal down here in Charlotte, where seemingly every day there's people rolling in and out of that airport. So that's good that you were in some calm confines over there.
Yeah.
Did you make it out there all right? Travel was pretty good.
Travel is, the way out was, hey, you know what? I'm glad you asked that. I didn't tell a story about I traveled on the way to New Orleans. So I'll share a
Yes,
quick story.
go for it,
And then
man.
we're gonna talk some football for about 20 minutes because I still got to drive back to Charlotte. And if you guys want to know why am I in Greensboro when I need to go to Charlotte, well, the reason is because I booked the ticket last minute. We're independent media. I don't have this gazillion-dollar budget, and it was about half the price to come to Greensboro, which isn't that far. So that's how it worked out. But here's a good story for you, and then we'll get into some football talk. On my flight to New Orleans from DC, it was a couple in the row, same row, but I guess opposite side of the aisle, and they had just gotten engaged,
Oh wow.
and they were drinking, I guess, before the flight, and wanted to continue to drink on the flight. So first they asked for a drink on the ground, and they're like, "No, we can't serve you alcohol on the ground. Once we push off, we can serve you alcohol." Uh, Basically, by the time the end of the story, which I'm going to make pretty quick, you'll know they didn't need any more alcohol because they get on the plane and they pretty much both pass out within, I don't know, 30 minutes. Just when I say pass out, like he's like over here, she's over there, and then at one point they pass out so much that it was they're in the window seat, the middle seat, and then there's the aisle, and then I'm in the next row. Well, that one lady that wasn't part of their party was like, "Hey, can you hit the flight attendant button? Because I can't reach it because this guy is passed out in my lap and I can't move." And so I had to hit the button for the flight attendant to then come and another person help move these people physically off the one person in the row that wasn't part of those two people and kind of prop them up against the window for the flight, right? So it was like, how are you that wasted before the flight that you get that passed out? And here's the end because I said I'll make it brief, but when your team's one in what are we 1-12, one in
We're one in
11?
man, 1-12.
Yeah, you got to provide some other comic relief to the viewer. So here's what happened: we land in New Orleans, and I'll try to make it short still because it's a funny story. But we land in New Orleans, and basically the guy had fell over into this lady's lap, right?
Oh
So
no.
it was the fiance, the guy, and then a passenger. So the people on the plane said, "Hey, you guys are pretty wasted. You fell out and blah blah blah." So once she learns that he had fell out onto the lady next to him, she starts dropping all kinds of f bombs, cursing him out, saying that, "Hey, we just got married. I'm gonna be your wife, and you're here. You are laying up on this other lady."
Oh no.
And he's like, he's still like drunk, and he's like, I was like, come on, man, you gonna yell at the guy for who he passed out on? You don't know who you pass out on when you fall. Anyway,
Right.
travels were good, but there's a good story for you. Let's talk some Panthers.
Yeah, let's talk about that team that resides on Mint and Moorhead. That's gonna be what I call them now, Chris, because we're at this point in the year where, you know, I don't think we're gonna be making any leaps and bounds, right, towards trying to achieve something tangible. Oh, before we get into it,
Yes.
we got a caller, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, let's get the
Let's go
caller.
ahead and get him on board. Who is
Is it
that?
is it a familiar face?
It sure is. Shakeen. What's going on, man?
Hey, so Chris, so I'm assuming these two couples were probably Panthers fans, drunk and passed out from watching this team.
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Sure, I'm assuming the two drunk couples were probably Panthers fans who drank from watching the team.
I wouldn't assume so because this was before the game and they had just gotten engaged.
Hey, they were
I don't.
pre-gaming, Chris.
Yeah, that was a heck of a pregame. I mean, like you pregame that hard in DC before you got to New Orleans. Well,
Yeah, what you got,
So,
Shakeen?
so I didn't actually Shaked, but anyway, it's all
Shaqued,
good.
my bad,
I
my
didn't,
bad.
yeah, no, it's all good. I didn't get
he
to watch
correcting us till we get
most.
it, but go ahead.
I didn't get to watch most of the game yesterday, which I think was fantastic. But the problem is, guys, as I mentioned earlier when I was on a couple of weeks ago, I really feel like the fans and you, AC and Chris, We are more upset at the result from the players or the coaching staff. I really believe that. I mean, you hear Chris Tabor today stating, "Oh, I'm going to give them time off to regroup." I mean, you're 1-12. You hear the players saying, "Oh, we should have fun." I heard Steve Smith earlier on WFNZ stating, "Listen, they're 1-12, but they should still laugh. They should still have fun in the locker rooms." And I mean, realistically, this is a job. In any other job, let's be honest. If you don't do your job, you're going to get fired. But in the NFL, they don't face discipline on this team. They don't face consequence. I mean, Aquano, every time, every game, he gave up sacks. What you hear the coach say? "Oh, he's playing great." And it's not just them. I mean, it's DJ Shark. It's so many players who realistically, I feel like they're playing just for the paycheck. They are not playing to win. I mean, look at 2015. Look at 2015 team, the 15-1 team. We talent-wise, we had practice squad players such as Philly Brown. We had Ted Ginn Jr., not a great wide receiver. Sure, we had Jay Stu, Olsen, Gross, Cam, Kickley, and Davis. But you know what they had? They had pride. They had the right attitude. They had the winning mentality. That is why they were 15-1. Not because they were talented, but because they did not like losing. You didn't have to hear the coach telling them, "Listen, you have to play tough." I mean, I don't know if you remember, AC, Chris, you probably remember Thomas Davis in the Super Bowl. He played with a broken arm.
He sure
He
did.
played with a broken arm. This team, they don't really care about winning. They don't.
Now, here's my rebuttal to that. Chris Tabor did say that they did not have formal activities today, but there were people in the building today. Do you have a response to that?
I do. I mean, in my opinion, I've said it before. My opinion, honestly, and it won't happen. You play like garbage, pardon my language. You should not get paid. Now, of course, you have the NFLPA, which will never allow it. But at the very least, since they cannot not get paid, which in my opinion, they should not get paid, then at the very least, you have to practice. You have to practice with pads. If it's allowed to, you have to practice with pads. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw what Joe Person tweeted out hours ago. Ticket
With
for
the
Sunday
tickets.
game.
Yep.
Ticket for Sunday game with fee. Which fee can be very expensive. Chris, do you want to guess how much the ticket price? Upper level?
I'm guilty of kind of being aware, but I think they have been as low as $2. Is that correct?
Yep.
Oh, $6. Around $7 with fee. $7 with fee.
I tell you what,
So,
if it was an indoor stadium, my family would be there at the game this weekend. But we got the newborn, and I can't have him out there in the cold.
I mean, I might show up for the Tampa game, but not to cheer. Not to cheer, but to let the players hear it, because, I mean, the Panthers social media account, they have tweeted out, and I understand the social media account have their job, they don't run the team and all of that, but they tweeted out, voted for the Pro Bowls, voted for the Pro Bowls, voted for this Panthers, for that Panthers. I mean, realistically, you're 1-12, you should not make it to the Pro Bowl. Maybe the Pro of Shame, but not to the Pro Bowl.
Any more comments that you got, man?
And then Thomas Brown, wife yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. I tweeted at you guys that basically his wife stated, "Oh, we know we are getting fired." I mean, realistically, whether you're getting fired today or in 4 weeks from now, you have to do a good job of coaching. Otherwise, why are you walking? If you know you're getting fired, just quit. But they are walking because it's all about the paycheck.
Yep. Hey, Shakid, thank you for coming on board, man. We appreciate you coming on.
Sure, no problem. Anytime.
All right, that was our guy right there. A lot to unpack. Where do you even want to begin, Chris?
Well, I do have some time constraints because I want to drive back to Charlotte.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So,
a few things I'll touch on. Number one, first and foremost is, I appreciate his passion,
yes,
and that's something that we need passionate fans in that stand cheering for this team in the hot weather, the cold weather, the rainy weather, that kind of thing. And he has some of the most passion of anyone that we come across on our channel. So definitely appreciate that. A little hardcore with the passion, but hey,
right.
that's what passion will do. A few things about what he talked about was, I'll start with from backwards because Andre, I know you're not used to being in that seat, having to take all the notes, but you're supposed to take all the notes from what he talked about to make sure we cover because I'm
It was a
freezing in the
lot.
airport. But I'll just touch on a few. The last one was him talking about the day off, and I get it. Tabor said you got to read the room sometimes. Some these guys can be so worn down that you just need to give them the day off so they can continue to try to reset because they're not robots. They are humans. You could beat them to a pulp by making them practice in pads every day, like Shakid, I probably said his name, or Shaked
Shaked,
said.
yep.
But they're human, so you can't necessarily say that that's going to equate to better performance. And that team back in 2015, yeah, you had some underachievers. I'm sorry, overachievers with like Philly Brown or Ted Ginn, but they were anchored by some superstars like Cam Newton, like Jonathan Stewart, like the lineman, like Thomas Davis, like Luke Kuechly. So that allowed things to balance out and for them to play as well as they did. So it's unfortunate, but you can only get so much out of so little talent. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about it with this next segue here, but it's just look at the points that we score each week. Look at the performance that we're getting each week. It's
It's
really
rough.
nothing. There's really nothing that you could do at this point except hope for a bad game by the other team, or hope for a crazy turn of events where you play out of your mind for a week. But otherwise, any given day, this team just doesn't have enough to compete, and it's just going to be like what it is down to the rest of the season.
Yeah, and those holes that you talk about, Chris, I mean, you could say that you're going to try and work on it every week at these pressers, like Tabor indicated today. But these are overarching issues that stretch beyond week to week things that you can try to fix. And speaking of those overarching issues and organizational problems that this team has, I know you saw the tweet that Thomas Brown's wife had on now X last night, um, which was
It sounds funny
definitely
that you say the name after you say his wife because it makes it sound like you're saying his wife is an ex now. But go
hey,
ahead.
it could be if if they are on the side of the road after the end of the season, which she basically indicated, right? So I just want to hear your perspective on that. Because with everything that's happening right now, with how fearless people are speaking in regards about this team, people associated with the team, uh, what are your thoughts on that?
It's frustration, man. He talked about it from a fan's perspective, and these guys, coaches and players, they can get frustrated, but I mean, they're honestly trained not to be and don't want to do all that in front of the public because they don't want it to show like, hey, there's also the locker rooms going on and other negative things are going on. They're not as a unit, right? So yeah, behind closed doors, just like you saw this past weekend, you saw Patrick Mahomes be what they consider out of character, going crazy on the sidelines. You saw it in the Saints game. You saw Derek Carr, I'm sorry, yeah, Derek Carr in the center going at it on the sidelines, and that became the bulk of the press conference for Dennis Allen, the Saints quarterback head coach. So
Yep.
what happened with her tweet was just honestly it happens in my house. My wife, when I get home, she talks about how bad this team is. She just doesn't get on Twitter for you all to see it. So for me, nothing that she said was like, oh, really? They're only here till the end of the season. Everybody knows that everything's going to change at the end of the season. All the people that are voting for or wishing for just complete rebuild. Well, what do you think a complete rebuild looks like? Thomas Brown is gone. Tabor's gone. Fitterer's gone. Everybody's gone. Capers is gone. Everybody is gone. And yeah, she probably just was, mad after the game, saying
Yeah,
this
heat of
it
the
sucks
moment
to
kind of
watch
deal.
all this. And she went on there and I'm pretty sure that I won't say I'm pretty sure, but I would feel like Thomas Brown is probably like he knows who his wife is. He knows that she was already mad for her. Like, hey, come on, just wait till I get home. Wait till I call you.
Right. Let me try to, loosen it up before you say anything too outlandish on the world of social media. But I mean, you get the frustration though on her end because
Hey, does your family, Andre, not talk about this team?
oh, it's the talk of everything, no matter where you go. Like that's legit the first thing that people say whenever I walk into a room. Man, how about those Panthers? And I'm like, we're not calling them the Panthers. We're calling them the team that resides on Mint and Moorhead because they don't deserve any sort of notoriety that they're getting right now. The only thing that they need to be focused on right now is turning something around before the season ends, which is not going to happen. I mean, that's just a false sense of hope that I still have, even amidst a 1-12 start. But I mean,
Andre,
yeah, yeah,
it's
go
so
for it.
cold. Not so cold, but there's a little draft here. You know how easily I get cold. I'm reaching for my hand warmer because my hand is freezing. But one other thing about this team and what can you do is I have been the first person, I won't say the first person, but I was posting the passing charts of Bryce Young
Yep,
weeks ago, many weeks ago, saying like, why are we not trying to throw the ball deep?
since the
Just like
Seattle
just
game.
throw it deep, just so we can see that we're trying to do something, so that we make them backpedal more than one time. Yesterday in New Orleans, they tried to throw the ball deep more than they have by far all season. I think one of the throws was even 40 yards, which is just like amazing in terms of what this team has not done. And what do you see? We still only scored 6 points.
No
It was still
touchdowns.
one of the poorest offensive performances of the season. And I think Bryce's quarterback rating was probably like around a 50 or something. I know it was pretty bad. So what does that tell me? That again just verifies we just don't have the resources, aka, aka good enough players
Right.
to make a difference.
Yeah, and that's probably the most baffling point of it all. You have 200 yards rushing, which at any point last season would have guaranteed you a win, right? And yet we do that in yesterday's game, don't score any touchdowns, and you lose by 22 points. I mean, it's just one of those deals where you're like, they did what they needed to do offensively. And I even said it, in our pregame show yesterday. They need to run the ball and keep things, with them, right, in regards to time of possession, which I believe they did for the most part. But they just could not take advantage of those opportunities that they had to try to put points on the board. And that was probably what made me feel even more frustrated after yesterday's game.
Yeah, a few of these comments. I'm thinking I can see the comments properly. I'm not used to looking at it from this perspective, but it
Yeah.
looks like Greg Grimes said, Texas in the house, good content, keep it coming, keep it up. Hey, I actually lived in Texas for a little bit, so appreciate that, Greg Grimes, you chiming in. And
Let me go ahead
Leonard
and pop
Kowalski
that
said,
up
I
on
really,
here.
there you go, good stuff. And then let me go ahead and get into this, and then I'm going to get out of here.
Okay.
I got my hand warmer,
Look
as
at
you see.
that. That's
Um,
going to be a good
that
segue
fingertip,
for.
you guys, I don't know how well you
Oh
can see
my.
it. My fingertip is look at look at you over there playing with the size of
Yeah.
the comments here. Got the sound effects going. Let's go ahead and talk about. We're going to go to class a little bit with you guys in
Oh, I
terms of
gotta
this
see
Carolina
this.
Panthers team and breaking things down. Now, I don't have all the diagrams because Andre's at the control room, and I did what I could at the airport, still on the flights, but I did not have a chance to send him all this stuff to go over. But we're going to break things down just a little bit because when the team's 1-12, you got to start just showing different pitches, right? So, how on earth, as Andre just touched on, do you have 200 yards rushing? What's the math, Andre? How much did we lose by yesterday?
We lost by 22. It was 28 to 6,
22.
so 22 points.
So, how do you lose by 22 points when you have over 200 yards rushing? Well, I'm going to tell you how. you have talent that is not nearly good enough across the board for this team, which is what we just talked about earlier. You don't have much difference that you could expect the rest of the season because you still just have the same players. And so here's what happened. We have been getting more and more of a balance of running the ball and passing the ball. We're running the ball more and more each week. And we ran the ball so much that we had over 200 yards yesterday. But it still wasn't enough because here's what would happen most of the time. We would run the ball, and I'm only going to talk on drives where we got about 50 yards or got near midfield or beyond. We were running the ball, chuba, 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 one pass, chuba, chuba, chuba. And then it's like Thomas Brown gets excited and it's like, you know what? We could probably start passing a little bit now and catch him off guard. And then we'd go to, if you look at certainly in the first half, and I don't know exactly about the second half, but if you look at all the drives in the first half, get your notebooks out. Once we got into their territory, the downs ended like this: one run, pass, pass, which means you stop the drive and then you have to kick a field goal. That was how you get 200 yards. You use the run to get in position, and then once you get closer, you have the uh, the passes, which then are incomplete and don't work out. And I think glancing at my notes here, um, man, my screen looks a little funny. I need my glasses on, you guys, so don't laugh at me here as I try to squint. But we had one drive that totaled about 50 yards. We were just past midfield, and we had the heavy dose of Achuba, as I
Yep.
talked about. And then we go for it on 4th and 1. And guess what? We did a pass, and it didn't work. And then same thing with the Sanders. Miles Sanders had an unexpected deep run, had
Right.
about a 40-yard gain, gets to the 1. What do? We go and we run the ball on first down, which is good, but we lose a yard. And I guess at that point he's like, "Oh no, we got to pass the ball to get there now."
Right.
We go to pass the ball and we get sacked, and
Which
then
was a killer at
and
that
then
point in the game.
another pass, and it was incomplete, and then we end up kicking a field goal from the 11. So it was, and that's all my notes here continue to point out is that once got past midfield, once we got near a position to start being able to throw the ball, I'm sorry, to continue to be in a scoring position, we
Right.
started passing the ball, and it didn't work. Even again, there was another point where we pass, and it was incomplete. And there's one other thing I want to point out. Well, let me continue to move on. I'm trying to talk fast, and I'm kind of
Right.
going all over the place a little bit, so I'm gonna slow down. But that was it. Again, if you didn't catch a classroom session, what it was is once we got past midfield, we changed, and you'll see those possessions for the most part ended in one run, pass, and then you got to kick a field goal. But that's not what got us down the field. One other thing I talk about is turnovers.
That's a big
Okay,
one.
turnovers are something that this team, because of what, Andre?
The
Lack
lack of
of
talent
talent.
and
We
lack of
don't have
margin
much.
of error.
Yeah, we don't have much room for error. I mean, we really got to play flawless. Like I said earlier, you got to hope that the other team just plays really terrible, or we play incredibly out of our mind for this team to win. We didn't even score a touchdown yesterday, but we had some turnovers. We had two turnovers, and we actually caused one turnover. But those two turnovers that we had, what are my notes here? Make sure I'm read here, because I know I'm starting to get too excited.
We had the Bryce Young fumble in the
Bryce
second
Young
quarter.
fumble, and fortunately the Saints did not score on that. But we had a good drive going, and then we started going all these passes. But that fumble early on in that game was crucial because that was still very early on in the game. The score wasn't out of control. It was still an extremely low scoring game. And you got to question, like, if we had not have fumbled that ball, continued to drive downfield, would that have given us some momentum? Could we have been up 7-3? Could that have changed the way that they coach the game, or could it have changed the way that the Saints play? Because the Saints were this game for the longest looked like who wants to win, because there were
Right.
plenty of mistakes on both sides. I was, as you know, down on the field post game, and to my left, I could hear this reporter saying, like, "Yeah, we won the game, but I
Hesitantly.
don't know how." It was not a pretty game. Like Carolina really should have won this game if you look at the stats, and of course that rushing stands out. But we had another turnover in which Johnny Hecker was going for a punt. I don't know
Yeah.
why they changed this to a fumble, all that talk. But anyway, his punt was blocked. It was returned for 7 points. And there you have it there. And then the one time that we do something good, Derek Brown, who's been playing out of his mind,
He
he
has.
bobbles, he tips a pass, catches it. Guess who has the ball? Carolina. What do we come out and do?
Miss a field
Pass,
goal.
pass, pass, and we don't even get anything out of that
Nothing.
possession after Derek Brown makes it. Why do we go to 3 straight pass attempts? It's like we get happy once we get cross midfield and we start trying to be pass happy, or after Derek Brown gets the interception. Oh, let's be pass happy. We got it. We could put a DAC, and we don't make it. So passing is not our strength. But anyway, that's my class session about why you get over 200 yards and you still lose a game by how many points again, Andre? I forget the
By
total.
22 points.
Yeah.
And
So
it's poor situational football, Chris. It's just lack of awareness, especially in those moments. We attempted 6 4th downs yesterday, and I believe 5 out of 6 were pass attempts. And in those situations where you only needed a yard in majority of them, as we get a caller coming in right now. Let's go ahead and add Thomas to the broadcast
Thomas
before.
Brown? Oh my goodness.
Not Thomas Brown,
You sure?
but it's definitely not Thomas Brown. I can guarantee you
Okay.
that. But let's
All
go
right.
ahead and add him on here real quick. My guy Thomas, how you doing, man?
What's up, guys? What's up?
Hey, where you at? Is there snacks in that
Man
background?
almighty.
Actually, that's my NASCAR collection in my office at home.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, it's
That
it's
looks pretty
my sort
legit.
of man room. I mean, makeshift or whatever. I got to make best what I got in my house. So,
I guess
Hey,
I'm
it looks pretty
hungry.
organized.
I see colorful boxes and I think food.
oh yeah, I mean, there. I mean, of course, with NASCAR food brands and everything, but kind of hard to make it out. But at this point, when it comes to calling offenses, it might as well just be like Madden. Just ask Madden. Is there an ask Madden option where
Yes.
even they would say, run it, run it, run it? Because I'm glad I missed half the game yesterday and only let my Sunday be ruined partially.
It's a trend
But
here. Everybody's saying they didn't watch the whole game.
I mean, by the time we got home, it was like almost three. But at that point, don't stop what's working for you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just go, run, run. And I mean, yeah, it happens. Blackshear falls down. I get it. Okay, great. But this is why I don't think Thomas Brown is going to be asked back, or even I don't know if he'll even be on a new coaching staff because he's new other coach is going to like. We get it. You were with a crappy team, but you kept making. Why'd you call this play? This call. So I mean, he's like he might be hurting his chances at another job unless he goes back to the Rams. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
But I don't know. It's what? It's another Sunday on a Monday. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Yeah, they lost. But at this point, like I said last time, you just become numb to the situation. So
Yeah.
it's what it is. I mean, the Panthers suck. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, heck, even the Jets scored 30 points on I think a touchdown at some point.
See,
So,
and that's the painful one right there because you're like, man, they haven't been performing as well either. With Zach Wilson, and they've had some turnover there at that spot, and yet they were able to find a way to go up against Houston of all teams,
hmm
who's been a pretty improved team in the AFC, and put up 30 on there. So Thomas, thanks for tuning in. We are glad to have you on. Sorry to cut you short because I know
oh,
Chris
hey,
is
I
trying to
totally understand. Thank you.
trying to hit the road. So thanks again for coming on, man.
Thank
Hey, yeah, I'll let you go ahead and respond in full to that guy in those comments. Hey, Andre, always thank you for holding it down while I'm trying to scoot and travel across the world to cover this team. And I think someone said, hey, save your money, stop traveling to cover this team. That's not what the man of the people does. The man of the people sticks with it no matter what. So I can continue to bring you guys updates and insight into this team. Thanks, everybody, for signing on. Andre, thanks for holding it down. I'm going to go ahead and get on the road.
Appreciate you, man. And hey, they may have to start calling you Mr. International at some point with the way that you've been traveling these past couple of weeks.
Let's go, Germany,
Let's
next
do it.
year.
Yeah. Chris Jenkins, everybody out there, that is the man of the people, as always, holding it down wherever he is. But yeah, to kind of just quickly respond to what Thomas had to say in regards to Thomas Brown. Yeah, I mean, this is Not a good look for anybody on this staff, right? With how the team has performed, how it's underperformed, especially on the offensive side of the ball, really for this entire season and for all the hype coming into the year with all these new pieces at the receiver spot, a new tight end, you name it. Nothing has happened, right? We keep waiting week after week after week for something to change. And you kind of just have to say it is what it is. Like Thomas said, they just suck. And whether it's a coaching thing or a personnel thing or a little bit of both, um, each thing and each phase there definitely has contributed to that. So we are now at that point of the show. We covered a lot here today. Derek Brown, uh, trying to get him to the Pro Bowl. He's had a phenomenal season. He's one of the lone bright spots on this team this season. Um, potentially being in the Pro Bowl. Vote for him if you haven't already. Chris Tabor indicating that the team had a day off today, not a lot of formal activity, and a lot of noise surrounding this team with Thomas Brown and his wife tweeting some stuff on Twitter. You name it, a lot that's been happening, a lot of good and definitely a lot of bad as well. So let's go ahead and hit up some of these comments here. I know you all have been patiently waiting. Thomas Frisbee saying, hello, hello, what is going on? Another Monday dealing with a Panthers loss, but have to move on. And, ultimately, yeah, you do have to move on. You have to move forward and turn the page. Atlanta is coming up here at home at Bank of America Stadium on Sunday, which we will be at the game covering live pregame and postgame, so be on the lookout for that. Leonard Kowalski saying, what is going on from California? Shakid leaving a comment as well. You were able to call in, and he was able to get a couple of things off of his chest, which we are so glad to hear. Kowalski saying, Grumpy said this is one of the worst teams in NFL history on Pat McAfee this morning, and I can't really argue that. So let's touch on that real quick, right? I had a poll yesterday on Twitter about the worst teams that we have had in Panthers history. Is this a year where we can say that this is the worst season in Panthers history? And let me go ahead and see if I can pull the results of that poll up because it was still live the last time that I checked. But a good majority of you said that this year has been the worst year in Panthers history, um, with an overwhelming majority, 86%, saying that this season has been the worst that they have seen. Um, 2010 and 2001 were the other two seasons that I had on that poll. Um, 2001, don't remember that year. I was 1 years old when that season took place. They were 1-15 in that season. 2010 is a season that I vividly remember because that season was the first season that I actually watched the team as a fan, and we went 2-14 that year. And there were a lot of a lot of things that you could say about that year and how difficult it was, but there was a purpose behind it because we knew that we had the number one overall pick, and we knew that we could draft a quarterback. This year, meanwhile, we suck, but we're not sucking for a purpose because we don't have our first round pick for this upcoming draft. That's going to be to whomever. Um, it's looking like it's going to be Chicago at this point. That's going to get it. So we're pretty much in this situation right now where we're obviously the worst team in the NFL and we have no reward for it, right? I'll bring in the NBA here in reference to the situation. Remember when the Charlotte Bobcats went 7-59 and they got scapegoated out of the first overall pick, and they were left with the second pick? This is kind of what this feels like right now. I know the comparisons are a little jagged, if you will, but this is what it feels like. There's no consolation prize for the struggles as fans for having to sit through the kind of year that we are seeing right now. So uh, that just adds salt to the wound, right? Shannon Taylor with a comment saying that everyone is saying Bryce is the problem when that is not true. All the owner, or it's all on the owner and GM that caused the issues, who traded away talent, draft picks, and expected a rookie to be successful in their first year. Let's touch on that for a little bit of time, shall we? Again, and I hope I have been consistent with this viewpoint, and I think I have, right? Bryce Young is the last thing that Panther fans should be worried about. Obviously, he's going to get heightened blame and a heightened spotlight on him because of uh, the amount of assets that they had to give up in order to get Bryce Young. So it's fair to criticize him from that perspective. But this thing is bigger than Bryce Young. These problems are bigger than Bryce Young. These are organizational failures that Bryce Young is having to overcome already in his first year in Carolina. You got a guy by the name of Scott Fitterer, our GM, that traded away the likes of DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, didn't re sign Hassan Reddick, didn't re sign Stephon Gilmore, just to name a few blunders. Didn't trade Brian Burns when he had the opportunity to get first round picks for. And you're probably not going to get anything in return at this point in time now, because they would have to franchise tag him in the event that they do decide to trade Brian Burns. So you lose leverage in that deal. And the whole "we're in on every deal" thing is something that sounded good in the moment, but when you look at it from afar, you're like, wow, did that thought process really set us back? And it has set us back at least 2 to 3 years with the amount of assets that we gave up and the lack of resources that we have now in the draft because of those trades. Um, yeah, Scott Fitterer deserves blame. David Tepper deserves a good majority of the blame for his meddling with the team, being involved in football day-to-day activities, heavily influencing the decision makers on this team. You name it, everything that he touches turns to trash. Right? Every decision that he has claimed ownership of has turned out to be duds, and it's a lot of swinging and a lot of missing. And while I do respect him for being a risk taker and being involved, because I do think he has those well intentions and good hearted intentions to bring a winner to Carolina, but you got to really take a look at some of the things and take a step back and say, hey, look, maybe I need to change it up in how I approach things with the team, right? But yeah, it's bigger than Bryce Young, ladies and gentlemen. And for those who are already labeling him a bust after 13 games, that seems a little harsh and a little rushed to judgment, right? Allie Broderick, what's going on? Allie, good to have you back on here. The Panthers are a get it right team for other teams. They sure are. They sure are. Chance Hines with a comment. And again, everybody who's been leaving those comments, we're already well over 55 comments on here. Keep on leaving them down there in the comment section. Continue to leave a like on this video so we can get our folks out there who are trying to discover new Panthers content. We want to be that option for you out there. How would we start tearing this down? Who would you trade for assets? This is a very good question, and a question that I hate having to answer, because the inevitable is going to happen in this situation, right? what's the strength of our team right now? It's our defense. It's our defense. And you're going to have uncomfortable conversations because that's primarily where a lot of our talent is on the defensive side of the ball. Brian Burns has been a guy that continues to get brought up in trade discussions because he's a talented player. And while he didn't have much to show for it yesterday, only one tackle recorded uh, in yesterday's game, uh, he's our best pass rusher. And that's something. I mean, I hate to say it, but you're at this point now where, you know, the players that are deemed good are not contributing to a winning cause. And so those uncomfortable conversations are going to have to be had. Brian Burns is somebody you're going to have to consider. Derek Brown is somebody you're going to have to consider. Jeremy Chin was a guy in trade discussions before he got hurt. Um, you're going to have to take a look at it because those pieces right there are really the only pieces that teams would even consider making a deal um, for this team. And look, Carolina has no leverage, right? There, people know that they are um, trying to unload talent, and people know that they need to make some moves, and they really don't have a lot of leverage right now, and that's a concern when it comes to some of these trade discussions that are going to be had in the offseason, whether it is Scott Fitterer or whether it is another general manager that comes in for Carolina. Um, it's going to be tough because those are going to be players that we drafted, that we brought in organically, that we're going to have to ship away in order to recoup some of those draft assets. So it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have because, man almighty, you don't want to lose those kinds of players. Leonard Kowalski saying time off to play more ping pong in reference to not having to watch the Panthers, I'm assuming. $5 foot long cheap seats. Yeah, I mean that's where we're at right now. I mean, $5 tickets in the upper bowl. Yeah, that's rough. Greg Grimes, Texas is in the house. Good content. Keep it up. We appreciate you coming on, man. And he's leaving another comment. Avero should be the head coach or bring back Wilkes. We will have to trade. And again, this kind of feeds back into that earlier question. We're going to have to trade J.C. Horn, Derek Brown, and others to get draft picks and start over, unfortunately. And again, this team is going to have to get tore up, right? Start all over from the foundation up. This is going to be a full rebuild that they're going to have, right? Um, because look at this season. Like, if this doesn't indicate to you that we need to start over, I don't know what will tell you otherwise. I mean, this is just a complete tear down that they're going to have to do here, and it's going to take time. AJ Marshall, Brown, and Luvu been the two Panthers' best defensive players this year. Frankie Luvu had a sack yesterday. The only sack that Carolina had in yesterday's game. Frankie Luvu is a guy who they picked up last year, and I believe he is due for a contract at the end of this season. So that's somebody that Carolina must retain. That's somebody I would feel comfortable opening up the pocketbook for to try to keep. Um, I don't know how to pronounce that name, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it. But here we go. One has two, or excuse me, let me read that again. Wow, I'm all frazzled here. Would we be any better? Here we go. If Reich let the coordinator coordinate from the jump, then tells you it's Reich's playbook because McAdoo kiss. Yeah, I mean, you make a fair point though in regards to letting people do their jobs and letting them be. And there was a lot of flip flopping uh, Frank Reich doing the play calling, and then Thomas Brown having it for 2 to 3 games, and flip flopping it back to him. Yeah, it was not good. Uh, Nervous saying Thomas Brown has zero situational awareness, and I mean zero. I feel like you could take a random Panther fan and they would do better at GM and an offensive coordinator. I feel that. Obviously, they're getting paid millions to be bad at their jobs. I wish I could do that. You and me both. The best job right now in America is a fired football coach. Hence Matt Rule. Hence uh, Frank Reich. And we just got a super chat from Nervous. Let's go ahead and put that on the screen. We appreciate it, man. I'm just frustrated that Bryce hasn't been anywhere near as good as I expected him to be with how much we gave up. Teddy and Darnold were better. And I think we'll lead off on this because this has been the thing, right? We'll end it on this. Bryce Young. Is he playing poorly because of the situation around him? Is he playing poorly because he's a rookie quarterback trying to figure it out? Is it a combination of both? Who knows? But let's just be straight with it, right? Sam Darnold looked better than Bryce Young in that 12-game stretch last year. Or really the last 8 games when he came back and was healthy. Teddy Bridgewater, right now, if you had to compare the two, would look better than Bryce Young. And I'm not a Teddy guy. I'm not a Darnold guy, right? Because those were fill-in guys, Teddy and Darnold, for what we have right now. Bryce Young, who we feel like can be a franchise guy. But right now, Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold in their time in Carolina has shown more than what Bryce Young has up to this point. Obviously, you have to compare the situations and the talent that was surrounded around both of those guys. But again, we can criticize fairly and say, hey, we are disappointed in how Bryce Young has played. But I'm not going to give up on him. I'm not going to jump the ship on him. We're 13 games into this young man's career. I'm going to give him time to grow. I'm going to give him time to blossom from a caterpillar to a butterfly. He's in that cocoon stage right now. He's learning. He is trying his best. And while it has been a disappointment, I'm not going to say that he's a bust, because it would be unjust of me and unfair of me to say that at this point right now. Yes, I'm disappointed, and yes, I need to see more from him and expect to see more from him. These past 5 games have been a pretty rough stretch for him when you look at the numbers. We need to see more. We need him to play better, and we need him to at least go on a stretch in these next 4 games to end off the year on a positive. If he can do that, then hey, I'll feel good. Let's put up Leonard Kowalski's comment because I do want to see this one. You can't jump ship on Bryce when you nearly sold the farm to get him. Yes, you just can't. I mean, you're kind of just at this point now where you have to roll with it with the amount that you gave up to get him. So you're at this point where it has to work. And if it doesn't work, then it's just a colossal failure. And that's where we are right now in regards to how things are with the team. To everybody out there who continue to show us love, who continue to tune in, and who continue to be active on social media. We appreciate it, man. Chris and I, it's been tough for us this season, right? It's tough to see it as a fan and actually be there at the game and see it unfold right in front of your eyes. It's even tougher. But we do it for all of you out there. You guys keep us motivated. You guys keep us grounded. And we appreciate all the love that we get every single day here on Charlotte Vibes, socials, YouTube, you name it. And I appreciate all of you for, again, being flexible with me, being, in the host chair. Usually it's Chris Jenkins holding it down and just being flexible with me. I appreciate it. Again, it's been a lot of fun. I'm learning myself how to, be a good host and to, try to, appease everybody, if you will, right? But again, for everybody out there tonight, I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for making this another successful edition of Mental Health Mondays for our team that resides in Moorhead. We're not even going to call them the Panthers anymore because, that's just where we're at this point in the year. But we're going to have a little fun with it as always. Keep at it here on Charlotte Vibe throughout the week. We're going to have updates as they become available as the Panthers get ready to take on the Atlanta Falcons. So Chris will have you covered on that. And for all of us here tonight, I am Andre Cassidy. Be well, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a good night.